When it comes to relationships, human connection, and understanding whether someone is truly interested, there's a truth that most people ignore because they've been conditioned to focus on words. We live in a society where we've been taught to listen to what people say, to hang on to every statement, and to believe that if someone tells us they care, then that must be the reality. But here's the thing. Words can be rehearsed. Words can be polite. Words can be empty. Energy, on the other hand, is pure. Energy is the vibration behind the words, the unspoken frequency that you can feel in your chest, in your gut, sometimes even before you've processed what was said. When someone is into you, it's not just in what they tell you. It's in the warmth of their presence, in the way their eyes light up when they see you, in the subtle lean of their body toward yours. When someone is not into you, their energy tells the story without them even trying to hide it. Think about it. You've met people before who instantly make you feel welcome, valued, and notice before they even said more than a few words, there's a charge in the air. That's the power of energy. And then there's the opposite. You walk into a room and the person you're hoping to connect with is there, but their body language is closed. Their smile feels forced. Their attention seems elsewhere. They answer your questions, maybe even with kindness, but there's no real depth. The spark you're searching for is missing. That's not an accident, and it's not something you should try to explain away. The danger is most people will override this feeling. They'll say, well, maybe she's tired. Maybe she's stressed. Maybe she's just having an off day. And while those things are sometimes true, when it becomes a pattern, you have to acknowledge that the pattern means something. Your intuition is one of your greatest tools, yet it's often silenced by wishful thinking. We want the story in our heads to match the reality in front of us. So we ignore the subtle ways the truth shows up. But here's the reality. If she's truly into you, you'll feel it without forcing it. If she's not, no amount of mental gymnastics will make that energy change. Energy doesn't lie because it's tied to genuine interest. When someone is excited to see you, their energy reaches toward you. It's in the pace of their voice, the curiosity in their questions, the openness in their body. They're present with you in a way that makes you feel alive. When that's missing, it's not about blaming her or making her wrong. It's simply about understanding that you can't manufacture mutual attraction. You have to remember we're all broadcasting signals all the time. Just like a radio station emits a frequency that can't be faked, people broadcast their intentions, their feelings, and their priorities through the way they show up. It's in the little things. Does she make eye contact and hold it, or does she glance past you while you're talking? Does she engage with your stories and build on them? Or does she respond with short answers and let the conversation fall flat? Does her tone sound warm and inviting, or does it sound neutral, detached, or distracted? These are all cues that reveal the truth behind the words. Now here's where the self-awareness comes in. When you allow yourself to notice the energy instead of chasing the words, you save yourself years of wasted time and emotional energy. The moment you start trusting your ability to read the unspoken, you become powerful in your decisions. You stop clinging to potential and start responding to reality. That shift will change everything. We also have to talk about the fact that energy is contagious. If you're constantly around someone whose energy is cold toward you, it affects how you feel about yourself. Over time, you start questioning your worth, your attractiveness, your value. You start wondering, what am I doing wrong? And that spiral can be dangerous because you end up adjusting your behavior, overgiving, and trying to earn their interest. But here's the truth. You can't create interest where there's none. You can't force energy to align when it's not naturally there. So instead of bending yourself into someone else's mold, you need to become a master at detecting alignment. You need to be honest with yourself about whether her energy is moving toward you or away from you. If it's moving toward you, you'll feel an ease. Conversations will flow, laughter will come naturally, and time will feel shorter when you're together. If it's moving away from you, you'll feel like you're chasing something that's always just out of reach. You'll notice you're initiating almost every interaction, and her responses feel like she's doing the bare minimum to keep things polite. The most powerful decision you can make is to honor the truth you feel, even when it's uncomfortable. Most people ignore that discomfort because they don't want to face the possibility that the person they want doesn't feel the same way. But ignoring the truth doesn't change it. It just delays the moment you have to confront it. And in that delay, you risk losing parts of yourself in the process. When you trust the energy, you free yourself from trying to decode mixed signals. You no longer waste days wondering why she hasn't replied, why she canceled again, or why she seems distracted every time you talk. You already know the answer because you've read the vibration she's sending out. That doesn't make her a bad person. It simply means your paths aren't aligned in the way you might have hoped. And here's something most people forget. When you step away from a connection that lacks mutual energy, you create space for something real to enter your life. You make room for someone whose energy naturally meets yours. Someone who doesn't make you question their interest because their very presence confirms it. That kind of connection can't be forced. It can only be recognized. Consistency is one of the clearest mirrors of a person's true intentions. You can't fake it for long. You might be able to play the part for a week, maybe even a month, but eventually your true level of interest will show up in your patterns. When someone is genuinely into you, they don't have to remind themselves to reach out, to follow up, to check in. It flows naturally because you're on their mind. You don't have to question where you stand because actions reaffirm it again and again. But when someone's feelings aren't strong or they're simply not interested, consistency is the first thing to vanish. One day, the messages are frequent, the conversations are warm, and it feels like momentum is building. The next day, they're distant, slow to respond, or completely silent. That's not mystery. That's disinterest revealing itself in a way that can't be hidden forever. Think of consistency like the rhythm of a heartbeat. When you're around someone who's invested, that rhythm is steady and reassuring. You don't need to analyze it. You can feel it. They show up for you in the small ways that matter. Remembering details you've shared, checking in when they know you have something important going on, keeping promises they've made, and making an effort to stay connected. On the flip side, when someone is not truly invested, the heartbeat is erratic. One moment they seem all in, the next they disappear without explanation. That inconsistency leaves you feeling unsettled because you can never predict how they'll act next. It's easy to confuse inconsistency with being busy. But there's a difference. Life happens to all of us. Work deadlines, family responsibilities, unexpected problems. Someone who's truly into you will communicate through those moments. They might not have as much time, but they'll still find ways to let you know you matter. A quick text, a short call, a thoughtful message before bed. These are the signs of someone who's committed to keeping the connection alive. Inconsistency, on the other hand, often comes with excuses that don't match the reality of how people treat the things they truly value. If she can scroll social media, hang out with friends, binge watch shows, but somehow can't find 2 minutes to acknowledge you, that's not about time. It's about priority. The human mind craves patterns because patterns create security. Inconsistent behavior erodes that security and leaves you questioning not only the relationship but yourself. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? Was it something I said? Should I change the way I'm acting? That's the danger of engaging with someone who isn't consistent. They pull you into a mental space where you're always trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't have a satisfying answer. And the truth is, the answer is simpler than you think. If she wanted to, she would. Now, here's the deeper layer. Consistency doesn't just show up in frequency. It shows up in alignment. A person's words and actions should move in the same direction. If she says she's interested, but her behavior doesn't reflect that, you're looking at a misalignment. And misalignment over time creates confusion, frustration, and ultimately disappointment. You have to train yourself to stop getting hooked on what people say when what they do is telling a different story. This isn't about being cynical. It's about being awake. When you're awake, you see the truth faster, and you can make decisions based on reality instead of wishful thinking. There's also a confidence factor in consistency. Someone who truly values you isn't afraid to be predictable in the best sense. They're not playing games, not trying to keep you guessing, not rationing their attention to create some artificial sense of scarcity. They want you to know where you stand because they're not afraid of connection. Inconsistency often comes from someone who either doesn't want the same thing you do or isn't willing to invest the effort to sustain it. Pay attention to how you feel after interaction. Do you feel secure, valued, and appreciated? Or do you feel uncertain, anxious, and confused? That emotional residue is one of the strongest indicators of whether consistency is present or not. When someone is consistent, you leave conversations feeling grounded. When they're inconsistent, you leave feeling like you're standing on shaky ground. That's because consistency isn't just about what they do. It's about the stability it creates in your emotional world. The truth is, a relationship without consistency is like a plant without water. It might survive for a while, maybe even look okay from a distance, but eventually the lack of care shows. The leaves wilt, the color fades, and the life drains out of it. You can't revive something long term if the effort isn't there. You can try to compensate for their inconsistency by doubling your own effort, but that only creates imbalance. Relationships grow best when both people are adding water, tending the soil, and making sure the roots are strong. So when you notice that someone's behavior swings wildly from hot to cold, don't romanticize it as passion or chemistry. See it for what it is, a lack of steady investment. And once you see it clearly, you're faced with a choice. You can keep hoping the pattern will change, or you can acknowledge that consistency is non-negotiable for real connection. Time is the most valuable currency any of us have. And unlike money, we can never get it back once it's spent. You can't save it for later. You can't earn it back. And you can't borrow more when it's gone. Where people spend their time tells you exactly where their priorities are. If she's truly into you, you will see it in how she makes space for you in her life. It won't be something you have to beg for, negotiate, or constantly remind her about. It will be something she does willingly because she wants to. On the other hand, if she's always too busy, always pushing plans back, or only reaching out when it's convenient for her, that's her showing you where you fit on her priority list. And the tough truth is, if you have to fight for her time, she's not valuing you the way you deserve to be valued. Think about the people you genuinely care about. No matter how packed your schedule is, you find a way to connect with them. You rearrange things, you squeeze in a call, you make plans because they matter to you. Interest has a way of creating time. Disinterest, on the other hand, hides behind the excuse of being too busy. And yes, life can get hectic, jobs, responsibilities, personal goals. But when someone is important to you, you carve out moments, even if they're small. That's the difference between someone who's invested and someone who's just keeping you around when it's convenient. One of the biggest mistakes people make is accepting scraps of time and calling it effort. If she's giving you the leftover moments, the 5 minutes before bed when she's half asleep, the rushed text while she's waiting in line, the occasional hangout, only when nothing better is going on, you have to recognize that as a sign of low priority. People make time for the things that bring them joy and fulfillment. If she's filling her schedule with other people, hobbies, or activities, and there's barely any space for you, that's not an accident. It's an indication of where you fall in her hierarchy of importance. And here's something important to understand. When someone genuinely wants to spend time with you, they don't just show up physically, they show up mentally and emotionally. There's a difference between her being in the same room and her actually being present with you. You can tell when someone is truly engaged because the conversation flows, the phone stays down, and there's an effort to connect. But when she's not into you, even the rare times you do spend together might feel hollow. Her mind drifts, her attention is scattered, and the moments feel more like an obligation than a joy. Time is also a form of investment. When someone spends time with you consistently, they're building something with you. It's like making regular deposits into a relationship account. Over time, those deposits grow into trust, intimacy, and a deeper bond. But when the time you share is inconsistent, minimal, or absent, there's nothing to build on. That relationship account stays empty, and eventually, you're left wondering why it feels like nothing is moving forward. It's tempting to rationalize her lack of time. You might tell yourself she's just in a busy season, or once things settle down, she'll make more effort. And while that can be true in rare cases, it's not the norm. Most of the time, people show you their priorities right from the start. If she isn't making time for you early on, it's unlikely that she will suddenly start doing so later. The pattern you see now is the pattern you'll see in the future, unless you decide to remove yourself from it. The truth is, time reveals everything. A woman who's genuinely interested will not only find time for you, but will also look forward to it. She'll make plans in advance, follow through on commitments, and even create opportunities to be together. She won't need constant reminders or prompting, because wanting to spend time with you will be a natural impulse. But when she's not into you, you'll notice the opposite. Plans will always be tentative, often rescheduled or canceled, and there will be no urgency to lock in the next time you see each other. And here's the danger. When you accept minimal time and effort, you start lowering your standards without even realizing it. You get used to the idea that a last-minute call or an occasional meetup is no. And you stop expecting more. But deep down, you know that someone who truly values you wouldn't treat you like an afterthought. They wouldn't have to be convinced to spend time with you. They would be excited too. Time is not just a measure of availability, it's a measure of value. When someone values you, they treat their time with you as important. They protect it, prioritize it, and show up for it. When they don't value you, their time slips away in other directions, and you're left feeling like you're chasing them just to get a piece of it. Recognizing this early can save you from months or even years of trying to build something with someone who has no intention of building with you. Communication is the lifeblood of any meaningful connection, And when someone is truly interested in you, that communication flows naturally. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like a chore. And it doesn't feel one-sided. There's a rhythm to it and ease because both people are engaged and curious about each other's world. But when she's not into you, that rhythm breaks. Conversations start to feel like you're pulling teeth. You're the one initiating most of the time. You're the one asking the questions. You're the one trying to keep the spark alive while she gives you short delay or uninterested responses. It becomes less of a back and forth exchange and more of a one-sided effort. And deep down, you can feel the imbalance. When interest is real, communication doesn't have to be scheduled or calculated. It just happens. She'll think of something she wants to share with you and send it. She'll ask about your day because she genuinely wants to know. She'll respond to your messages in a way that keeps the conversation alive, not in a way that kills it. But when she's not into you, replies become colder, shorter, and less frequent. Messages start to feel like obligations instead of opportunities to connect. You might get a hey or a low here and there, but the enthusiasm is missing. And without that enthusiasm, the conversation can't grow. One of the biggest signs is the difference in response times. When someone is excited to talk to you, they make time to respond, even if it's a quick, I'll get back to you soon. But when there's no real interest, hours or days can pass without a reply. And when the reply finally comes, it's often flat, lacking any real engagement. That's not because she's too busy. People make time for what they value. It's because you're not on her list of priorities. And that reality is showing up in her communication habits. And it's not just about text messages or calls. It's about the depth of the interaction when you do connect. If she's into you, she's invested in the conversation. She listens actively, remembers details from previous talks, and builds on them. She asks follow-up questions. She shares personal stories. She lets you into her world. But if she's not interested, you'll notice her answers are vague. Her questions are minimal, and she rarely opens up about herself. The conversation stays on the surface, and it feels like you're talking to a wall instead of to someone who's eager to know you. This lack of effort in communication has a ripple effect. It makes you feel like you're the only one working to keep the connection alive, and that imbalance creates frustration over time. You start questioning why you're even trying so hard. I was. And you begin to feel undervalued. It's exhausting to keep sending energy into a connection that isn't being reciprocated. And yet, many people stay in that cycle because they hope things will change. But here's the truth. Communication patterns rarely improve unless the interest behind them changes. And that interest can't be forced. Another subtle sign is how much she engages with your life outside of direct conversations. If she's genuinely into you, she'll react to your updates, comment on your posts, or find little ways to let you know she's paying attention even when you're not directly talking. If she's not into you, that engagement will be minimal or non-existent. She might see what you post but never acknowledge it. She might hear about something important happening in your life but never follow up. That's because real interest fuels curiosity, and without curiosity, there's no motivation to stay connected. It's also important to understand that communication isn't just about frequency. It's about quality. You could talk to someone every day, but if those conversations are empty, they don't create real closeness. Quality communication involves emotional presence. And when she's not into you, that presence is missing. She might respond to your messages, but her replies will lack depth, warmth, or genuine engagement. You'll feel like she's just going through the motions. And that feeling is a sign in itself. Some people try to explain away poor communication by saying, that's just how she is. She's not much of a texter, or she's just busy right now. And while it's true that communication styles vary, interest has a way of breaking through those styles. Someone who wants to connect will find a way to match your effort, even if it's not in the exact format you prefer. The key is that they show you they're thinking of you and that they want the connection to grow. When that's missing, it's not a matter of style. It's a matter of priority. In the end, communication is a reflection of where someone's heart and mind are. If she's into you, you won't have to wonder. She'll make it known through the way she shows up in conversations, the way she engages, and the way she keeps the connection alive without you having to constantly push for it. If she's not into you, the lack of effort will eventually become impossible to ignore. And that truth will be written not in what she says, but in what she doesn't do. Boundaries are a natural and healthy part of any relationship. But there's a difference between boundaries that protect personal well-being and boundaries that are used to keep someone at a distance because there's no real interest. When she's into you, boundaries exist, but they don't feel like walls. They feel like respectful guidelines that help the relationship grow. She's still open, still willing to share herself, still allowing the connection to deepen. But when she's not into you, the boundaries she sets will feel like locked doors with no keys in sight. They're not about protecting herself in a healthy way. They're about preventing closeness. You'll notice it in the way she avoids vulnerability. She'll keep conversations light and surface level, steering away from anything that might create emotional intimacy. If you ask about her life, she'll give short, vague answers that don't invite you in. If you try to share something personal about yourself, she might acknowledge it briefly, but won't reciprocate. Over time, you'll realize that while you're trying to open up, she's doing the opposite, pulling back, keeping you at arm's length, never letting you in far enough to truly connect. Physical closeness is another area where this becomes clear. Someone who's attracted to you and genuinely interested will find subtle ways to close that physical gap, leaning toward you when you speak, brushing your arm, making eye contact that lingers just a second longer. But if she's not into you, that space between you will remain. She'll avoid situations that could lead to physical closeness. She'll sit further away, and she might even make small adjustments to keep that distance intact. It's not an accident. It's a reflection of her lack of desire to deepen the connection. She may also set logistical boundaries that prevent you from having more access to her life. Maybe she never invites you to her home, never introduces you to her friends or family, never suggests spending time together outside of very specific circumstances. These aren't just preferences. They're barriers designed to limit your role in her world. When someone truly wants you in their life, they integrate you into it. They find ways to connect you to the people and places that matter to them. When that's missing, it's often because they don't see you as a long-term part of their story. Another sign is how she reacts when you try to deepen the relationship. If you suggest spending more time together or doing something meaningful, she might deflect, change the subject, or give you excuses. You'll notice that she's comfortable keeping things exactly where they are because moving forward would mean allowing a level of closeness she's not interested in. And the truth is, when someone is genuinely excited about you, they don't shy away from deepening the bond. They welcome it. Emotional availability is a huge part of this. You might find that she's quick to talk about trivial or external topics, but goes silent when the conversation shifts toward feelings, dreams, or personal challenges. She might even tell you outright that she's not looking for anything serious or doesn't want to get too close right now. While it's important to respect someone's stated boundaries, it's also important to recognize that these statements are often a clear sign that her interest is limited. She's telling you in her own way that she doesn't want the depth you might be looking for. These boundaries can also show up in subtle, everyday ways. For example, she might never initiate conversations or plans, leaving you to do all the work. She might avoid situations where you naturally spend more time together, like weekend trips, holiday events, or even casual gatherings. She might be friendly and polite, but always with a sense of formality that never eases into real closeness. It's like there's an invisible line you're never allowed to cross, no matter how much time you've known each other. The important thing to understand is that these boundaries aren't inherently bad. They're a signal. They're showing you that she's not looking to invest more into the relationship, that she's comfortable keeping things at a certain level, and that she's not interested in moving past that. And the more you ignore those signals, the more you'll find yourself frustrated and confused, wondering why things aren't progressing. When you respect yourself enough to notice these patterns, you stop trying to climb walls that were never meant to be climbed. You start seeing that true interest naturally dissolves unnecessary barriers. Someone who wants you in their life will find ways to let you in, to create moments of closeness, and to make you feel like you belong in their world. When those moments are missing and the walls keep getting higher, it's not because you haven't tried hard enough. It's because she's already decided how close she wants to let you get. Self-respect is one of the most powerful filters you can have in relationships because it allows you to see the truth for what it is, not for what you wish it to be. When someone's not into you, it's easy to slip into a cycle of excuses. Telling yourself she's busy, she's shy, she just needs more time, or she's been hurt before. And while any of those things might be true on the surface, the deeper truth is often that her interest simply isn't there. Without self-respect, you ignore those signs and keep chasing validation from someone who's not giving it freely. But when you truly value yourself, you recognize that you don't have to fight for someone's attention or convince them of your worth. Self-respect means you believe at a deep level that your time, energy, and presence are valuable. It means you don't settle for being an option, a backup plan, or an occasional distraction. When you operate from this place, you start to notice patterns quicker. You see when someone's actions don't match their words, when their energy toward you is inconsistent, or when they're not putting in effort to maintain the connection. Instead of rationalizing those patterns away, you take them as the information they are, clear indicators of where you stand in their life. It also means you stop overinvesting in one-sided situations. Without self-respect, you might find yourself overcompensating, sending more messages, making more plans, giving more attention just to keep things alive. You think that if you can just show her how much you care, she'll eventually feel the same way. But the reality is genuine interest can't be forced into existence. All you end up doing is draining yourself emotionally while reinforcing a dynamic where she doesn't have to invest much because you're doing all the work. Self-respect stops that cycle. It allows you to say, if the effort isn't mutual, I'm stepping back, not out of anger, but out of a deep understanding of your own value. This mindset also helps you avoid the trap of chasing potential. Potential is intoxicating. You see flashes of what the connection could be if only she gave more, if only she opened up, if only she matched your energy. But potential is not reality. Self-respect keeps you grounded in what's actually happening, not what might happen someday. You stop living for the rare moments of attention she gives you and start evaluating the overall pattern of behavior. If that pattern tells you she's not into you, you believe it the first time instead of waiting for it to change. Another part of self-respect is having standards and boundaries that you actually enforce. It's not enough to just think, I deserve someone who's consistent, communicative, and invested. You have to act on that belief. If she's showing you through her actions that she's not interested, self-respect means you don't keep chasing or waiting for it to change. You redirect your focus toward people and situations that reflect your value back to you. This doesn't mean you have to cut people off with hostility. It means you simply stop giving your energy to places where it's not appreciated. Self-respect also changes the way you interpret rejection or disinterest. Without it, you might see her lack of interest as a reflection of your worth, thinking, if she doesn't want me, there must be something wrong with me. But with self-respect, you understand that someone's preference is not a universal judgment. Just because one person doesn't see your value doesn't mean that value isn't there. It means they're not the right fit for you, and you're free to find someone who does see it clearly. This is where emotional discipline comes in. Self-respect requires you to control the urge to keep chasing someone simply because you like them. You might feel a strong attraction. You might have great chemistry. You might even share amazing moments together. But if her overall actions show she's not invested, you choose to step back anyway. That choice can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating because you're no longer letting feelings override your standards. Over time, this way of thinking becomes second nature. You stop taking mixed signals as a challenge to decode and start seeing them as a sign to disengage. You stop feeling anxious when someone pulls away, because you trust that anyone who's meant to be in your life will make the effort to stay there. And most importantly, you stop giving people the power to determine your value based on how much attention they give you. When you operate with self-respect, you naturally attract people who respect you in return. They see that you value your time and won't settle for breadcrumbs, and that sets the tone for healthier, more balanced connections. You don't have to demand respect. It becomes the standard by which you live. And the people who align with that will rise to meet it. Those who don't will naturally fall away, leaving space for relationships that are mutual, fulfilling, and built on genuine interest rather than one-sided effort.